Thank you very much, Caitlin, and the OAFP. This is a really exciting opportunity for me and a very special one. In fact, in 2009 and 10, I was doing the math the other day. When I was in medical school, my first involvement with organized medicine was actually with the OAFP as a student. I get to serve as a student director and spend some time with the board of directors. So really, really cool and exciting for me to sort of come full circle after my whole sort of journey all over the United States and be here presenting for you all today. This is easily my favorite topic to discuss of all the different, sort of things I've pursued. Lifestyle medicine really is my passion, and I'm hoping I can impart some helpful evidence for you guys on things you can sort of do in your own life to try and optimize your own health and well-being. So with that, Caitlin already did a really nice introduction to me. I'm not really going to go over any of this, but if anybody is interested for family medicine, you can actually get board certified in obesity medicine and lifestyle medicine as sort of like your own do-it-yourself sort of fellowship to sort of get some extra knowledge and an extra skill set, which I definitely would highly, highly recommend. But like you said, I'm currently in Atlanta. I'm going to be a team physician at Emory starting next month. So anyway, I do think conflicts of interest are always important when you have a presenter coming in to bring ideas or whatever else. The only conflict of interest I have is the Lifestyle Medicine Handbook we published the previous October. I haven't received any royalties from it, but a lot of the knowledge and stuff from this lecture is found in the book. And also is a good guide and tool that people can use as well. So the objectives for today, I tried to keep it very simple. I know we have about 45 minutes. I'm going to try and talk for maybe 30, 35 and give you guys an opportunity to ask some questions and things. The first two we're going to go through fairly quickly, but I just want to sort of get everybody on the same page in terms of what lifestyle medicine is. And then we'll spend the majority of the time hopefully on the last two, which is really sort of the implementation of this into our lives as busy physicians, and then figuring out useful tips and tricks that you can sort of incorporate in your own life. So with that, we'll start with just defining what lifestyle medicine is. I'm guessing there are many of you who are familiar with it, but here's sort of a formal definition from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, but it's essentially the therapeutic use of evidence-based lifestyle interventions to treat and prevent lifestyle-related diseases in a clinical setting. It empowers individuals with the knowledge and life skills to make effective behavior changes that address the underlying causes of disease. I think the important points out of this is, one, this is all evidence-based stuff. There's legitimate research behind it. This has proven efficacy. This is not just saying, hey, we're just going to tell you to do whatever we think is a good idea in terms of a lifestyle change. It's all very researched and very relevant. And secondly, this is a tool that actually addresses underlying causes of disease. I think that's one of the major issues with the chronic disease epidemic we have. The overwhelming majority, if not most of the medications and pills that we have, just help sort of slow the progression of disease or quote unquote control it. Lifestyle medicine really is unique in that it gives you the opportunity to sort of impact the underlying causes and the root causes of the disease to actually have an impact and potentially reverse disease in some case, which I'm going to go through shortly here. To give you an idea of this American College of Lifestyle Medicine and this sort of newish field of medicine, I mean, one could say lifestyle medicine is basically just good medicine, and I largely agree with that. But to give you sort of a context, we think about the American Academy of Family Physicians, which I'm guessing all of us are a part of. Just like we have the AAFP, we have the ACLM, or the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. Just like there's an American Board of Family Physician where you have to take your exam every 10 years, although hopefully that's shifting. We also have an American Board of Lifestyle Medicine, which is actually has only had 2 years. It's going to be its upcoming third year of offering, so it's fairly new, but it is open and able to be taken by family physicians. And similarly, again, that notion of evidence-based is reflected in the American Academy of Family Physicians, the journal that we have, the American Family Physician, and also we have an American Journal of Lifestyle Medicine. So I think one of the other confusing things about lifestyle medicine is that, like, what is it? I mean, I have to spend many, many times just discussing with my parents what it is that I'm passionate about, what it is that I do. And I think because there are so many of these other terms that get thrown out there, I think it's difficult to really understand what the nuances and differences are. So I'm just going to sort of briefly run through a few that you've probably seen, but this notion of complementary and alternative medicine, very, very prevalent, particularly academic institutions and other places. Complementary medicine just means you're using some other adjunctive treatment to complement what we call conventional medicine, which is probably what the majority of us do. But complementary medicine can include things like acupuncture, Ayurveda, energy, Reiki, those sorts of treatments. And they could be seen as alternative medicine if you use that as your sole medical thing. So you're not doing it in conjunction with conventional medicine. If you're doing it as a true alternative healing route, that's a separate sort of medical care. Both of these can be considered, or at least complementary can be considered integrative medicine. And again, integrative medicine is just the notion that you're integrating outside treatments beyond conventional medicine within the treatment scheme. So very, very similar to complementary. Functional medicine is another sort of newish field that's out there. Has got a lot of hype, has a lot of interest. It's really fascinating. I've looked at some of the lectures and things in there. They very much focus on root causes of diseases. I think to differentiate functional medicine a bit from lifestyle medicine, functional medicine tends to do a bit more lab testing, and they also tend to focus a bit more on supplementation to sort of fix underlying errors of metabolism or other sort of underlying lab abnormalities of things like, for example, they will use like the Krebs cycle, and they'll measure all the intermediates and say, well, this one's high, this one's low, and then offer a supplement to sort of get everything back within this acceptable range. But again, the same idea of treating root causes of diseases is found in that, as well as integrative medicine too. There's naturopathic or homeopathic medicine. Again, naturopathic is more using natural substances, herbs, spices, sort of some traditional Chinese medicine. And homeopathic medicine is the idea of using very, very small dilute quantities of even the same sort of pathogen to try and help treat whatever disease it's ailment or that's ailing you. And lastly, holistic medicine has gotten thrown out there. I think this is sort of a catch-all term because I think most of the people who practice medicine would like to think that they practice in a holistic manner, which just means you take into account the entire patient when you're providing your care. So anyway, so to give you sort of an even more concrete example of what lifestyle medicine sort of entails and what we typically focus on as providers, there's 6 main pillars of lifestyle medicine, which is the easiest way that I've found to think about it. And if you want an easy mnemonic to remember it by, it's what you do with your feet, your fork, and your fingers, and that's what you eat. You're getting your daily exercise or physical activity, and not smoking or using alcohol or other dangerous substances, or doing so in moderation when appropriate. And then there's sleep, stress, and love. I think those are pretty self-explanatory, but it's getting adequate, sufficient, restorative sleep, having ways to cope, manage, and deal with your stress, and having loving, meaningful relationships with yourself, those around you, and a higher spiritual power if you so desire. Now, much of the research in lifestyle medicine tends to focus on the top 3. Certainly, cessation of smoking or not smoking probably has one of the highest impacts on just general disease and health. But certainly exercise and nutrition have profound impacts as well. And most of the data that we've looked at, even across multiple studies, across multiple countries, certainly for just general chronic disease, cardiovascular disease, the number that seems to reappear recurrently in the literature is about 80%. And in terms of what behaviors get you the 80% prevention of chronic disease, we're talking about having a healthy diet. We're talking about getting adequate physical activity, which in most cases is approximately 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity a week, not smoking, and then maintaining a healthy BMI. So it's technically 4, but BMI is not really a behavior. It's really an outcome from, outcome from some of the other sort of exercise and nutrition and smoking or not smoking. Now, while most of the research is out there that really supports these very, very strongly, there is starting to be more research and appreciation for these last 3. And while you could look at the harder outcomes of disease prevention, treatment, and reversal for some of the nutrition, exercise, and tobacco, I'm here today to probably make the case to you that probably these bottom 3 probably have a much bigger impact on the general quality of our life. In particular, for us as physicians, I'd say stress management is high on that list, particularly for folks who are suffering from burnout. And I'm guessing most of the folks here are here because they're trying to get a love and appreciation and joy back in medicine. And I think stress and burden from having to do paperwork and administrative processes all really play into that. And the beauty and the challenge of lifestyle medicine is that any one of these 6 domains can impact the others. So anybody knows who's lost lots of sleep or has had to stay up all night, the next day your mood is quite irritable. You tend to not make the best dietary choices. We tend to eat higher carbohydrates and more calories. We certainly don't have the energy to exercise, and certainly being in an irritable mood probably doesn't help our relationships much either. Being under stress can also do many of these same things. It can lead to substance abuse, in which physicians we are higher on that list. It can also lead to things like suicide and other really unfortunate things. So I think much of us today is, as much as we get harped on for the exercise and nutrition and having alcohol in moderation and not smoking, I do think the stress management is one that I've just really come to appreciate is perhaps one of the most important ones, because it really does impact our just psyche and our just sort of conscious state of being all the time. So we'll talk a little bit about a couple of these today, but that's sort of the main way I think about lifestyle medicine. When you have a patient or someone who comes in, these are the different domains that I would try to essentially optimize for them in whatever order that they are excited and willing to motivate and move through. But it's also a good way for ourselves to think about our own health and how our own diet is. Are we getting sufficient exercise? How much alcohol do we consume? Are we stressed? Do we sleep enough? How are our relationships with others? So again, just an easy framework that you can think about and sort of measure yourself across, you know, some of the standards. And again, this idea of the lifestyle medicine with the pillars, I think, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier, and this is from the book, but I think there's this idea of this health continuum that we are all on, and you can put our place on there somewhere. Obviously, none of us are dead. I'm guessing probably few of us get to experience a lot of time in the optimal functioning on the far right, but certainly somewhere between a disease state, if we have hypertension or diabetes, or if we think we're fairly well overall, we can place ourselves on this sort of continuum. And the beauty of lifestyle medicine is that really, in general, the natural progression of life, unless we intervene or do something, is to gradually move leftward. Eventually our bodies will break down. Eventually we will develop chronic disease if we have enough time. But essentially there are things that we can do to try and either slow that progression or, in the case of lifestyle medicine, reverse it. I think the unfortunate thing with much of the conventional medicine we do in relation to chronic disease specifically, not necessarily acute like traumas or acute infections, because those things obviously can be healed with antibiotics and other measures. But in general with chronic disease, like I said, if you have diabetes and we give you metformin, it's very unlikely you're ever going to come off metformin unless you do some sort of lifestyle intervention, which is cleaning up your diet, losing some weight, doing some other sort of thing to actually address the underlying cause. Same with insulin, same with high blood pressure. Again, without lifestyle intervention, we're really just helping control symptoms and help mitigate your risk of having a bad outcome like a heart attack or a stroke, etc. And so lifestyle medicine, again, the beauty of it is you actually have the opportunity to move towards the right of this curve. And that really doesn't matter how sick you are, or you could probably make the case how well you are. There probably is something that we can still optimize. But either way, it's just an exciting opportunity for medicine for me that I'm passionate about, because I'm much more focused on getting people well rather than just helping keep them sick. So with that, again, I'm just going to give you a few studies just to show the power of lifestyle medicine, because I think most of us appreciate that getting adequate exercise and physical activity and eating a good diet are good for us, and that they do prevent diseases. I mean, there's a robust literature out there showing that the power of prevention, showing that 80% of chronic diseases could be prevented if we did these lifestyle things. Again, I'm focusing today on us and you just to give you an overview of lifestyle medicine, that this is really more powerful than just prevention. This is actually treatment, and in some cases disease reversal, which you can't really see with traditional medicine. So this was a landmark study. It was actually published in 1993. This is a follow-up that was done in 2000. They looked on the left, and sorry for the busy slide, but on the left, there's the leading causes of death. And so this is when you die, they have to put something on your death certificate saying you died of heart disease or cancer or stroke, whatever. Obviously, those are the top three. And then you can look on the right side, and this was an interesting study that was done originally, but they said, well, all right, so you died of heart disease, but what were the things that caused your heart disease, right? And so there's a number of factors that could have gone into that. And so if you look, as you can see, tobacco was in these studies anyway, was the leading cause, the actual cause of death. Poor diet and physical activity was right behind it. Alcohol was right behind that. Again, these are all very much lifestyle medicine things. And you can make a case that some of these other things in the actual causes of death could also be improved or mitigated through lifestyle use as well. But the numbers essentially, again, this is the 80% I told you. So if you calculate the tobacco, poor diet, physical activity, and alcohol in this study, it's about 40% of all causes of death. But if you look at what are preventable causes of death, because everybody's going to die of something at some point, 80% of the preventable causes of death end up going to just tobacco, poor diet / physical activity, and alcohol consumption. And so to show you a few trials, because that's nice epidemiologic and observational data, this was one of the landmark studies that was done in 2002. It was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, and this was folks with prediabetes. And again, just through a lifestyle intervention that I put on the left there, but included weight reduction, a low-fat diet, and adequate physical activity. Essentially, if you took metformin and you were a pre-diabetic, you had a 31% decreased risk of developing diabetes. If you did the intervention lifestyle group without any medication, you had a 58% reduction. So about a relative percent, or 17% relatively more than metformin as a drug. So again, just a trial to show you that lifestyle is actually more powerful than an agent used in terms of preventing progression of diabetes. And it's not just diabetes. This is an example with the DASH diet for high blood pressure. And this was just a 3-week study I pulled from one of the DASH ones that actually looked at the low-fat DASH diet and also a high-fat DASH diet, just to show you that there are a variety of ways we can get outcomes and results that are favorable. But again, 3.5 or almost 4-point drop in systolic blood pressure, 2 to 3 in diastolic. Again, just showing you the power that lifestyle medicine can treat, even hypertension as well. I did a CME module for diabetes reversal in the impact of physical activity. This is just a summary slide I drew basically from an informal systematic review of all the literature. But this is only using physical activity. This has nothing to do with diet. So if I had a diabetic and said, I'm just going to do physical activity, I'm not going to change my diet, I'm not going to do anything else, you can see the absolute hemoglobin A1C reductions. And so just aerobic exercise alone, you get anywhere from 0.3 to 0.7 A1C point drop. Resistance training, 0.3 to 0.6. If you combine the two and do it for the same amount of time, you end up with about 0.5. And then this idea of high intensity interval training may give you up to an additional 0.3 percentage A1C reduction. So if you had just an aerobic exercise program that included high intensity, you could potentially get up to almost a 1.0% drop in your A1C just with exercise. Now again, if you just do diet and you don't even do an exercise program per se, in this case, this was a Verta Health study across the year, but patients started at hemoglobin of 7.6, ended up at a hemoglobin of 6.3, and then they lost 12% of their body weight. And with this particular study, 94% of them decreased their insulin use, 60% had reversed their diabetes, which just meant you had a hemoglobin A1C below 5.7 and you weren't on metformin. And again, you can see the absolute hemoglobin A1C drop. And this, again, was just a diet study alone. So just showing you the power to potentially reverse diabetes, not just treat it or prevent it, but reverse. And then lastly, I think this one is one of the most profound imaging-wise. And these studies are from Dr. Esselstyn at the Cleveland Clinic from Ohio. But this is his cardiac reversal program. So you can see on the left, these stenotic areas after his low-fat intensive lifestyle treatment. You can see that you actually get an opening of the arteries, which no medical procedure can do. I mean, we have stents, but you have to imagine that heart disease is prevalent in every vessel, not just a single vessel. So the idea that you can actually reverse pretty significant heart disease is pretty powerful and pretty impressive. And these studies have been done by Dean Ornish as well that also show just remarkable recovery of cardiac function. So again, just more evidence that lifestyle medicine is not just preventing disease and getting some exercise, but it can be used as a very therapeutic thing and something we can all benefit for. And while I've just showed you lots of data to suggest that, hey, we can help prevent disease, we can add years to your life, if that was the only thing lifestyle medicine did, I think we would all still say this is one of the best treatments we've got. But it's not just about that. And I think this is where this really brings it home to us today as physicians. Lifestyle medicine, yeah, you get all those benefits of disease reduction, less chronic disease, less morbidity, less mortality. But I think the real prize of lifestyle medicine is that you get more life to your years. You get vitality, you get energy, you get feeling good, you get to do all the things that you love. And lifestyle medicine is really the best way to preserve that across the lifespan. And so what I'm going to talk about today, and this is sort of the second half that I'm a bit more excited to talk to you about, because some of this is implementing these lifestyle medicine practices and how we can do it in our busy lives as physicians. So one of the things that I hear all the time from basically every patient I see is, I don't have time for this. And it doesn't matter if you are a janitor, if you're a retired grandparent, nobody has time for this stuff. Almost everybody is busy with something. And I'm sure you can all relate to this and the patients you have. We're all busy people. Even if you said, hey, you have a week off, I bet you'll find 1,000 things that you would fill that time with. So one of the challenges, hey, we're all busy. And I think the data from the US Bureau of Statistics, fairly well demonstrates this. And I use this more as an example rather than a true applicable wheel to ourselves, but you can think about your day in 24 hours, right? We all have the same amount of time every single day. It just matters of how you decide to sort of use that time and what choices you make and how you spend it. And so this was an average adult aged greater than 18 to 75 on an average work day. So again, assuming you're working at least 40 hours. But anyway, this is what people reported. So again, it's a report. I'm not convinced that it's necessarily true data. And I think certainly as physicians, this probably doesn't reflect, it certainly doesn't reflect my life. And I'm guessing a lot of us, it probably is not entirely consistent with how we spend our 24 hours. But they estimate about 9 hours working, which also includes your commute. I'm guessing many of us, if we're at the office from 8 to 5, we all know that there's documentation, notes, follow-up calls, emails, being on call. That work hour easily extends beyond 8, 9 hours at times, potentially towards the 10, 11, etc. People reported sleeping almost 8 hours. I'm very skeptical of that number, just given some of the other data that's out there. But again, this is just statistics from them. I'd love to think that we're all getting our 8 hours of sleep, but I'm guessing most of us probably don't have this big of a chunk out of our 24-hour day dedicated to sleep. You can see leisure activity here, which again, 3 hours of leisure activity seems like a fair amount, knowing how busy I am. But if you include exercise and other things like talking with your spouse or hanging out or going out to eat or whatever, perhaps that is appropriately true. But I put up this more for us to think about how we separate and segregate our day, right? How much of your day is actually dedicated to working? This is a pretty easy figure to sort of come up with. And you can say, am I happy with the distribution of everything and how it looks? And if you're not, where do we need to change things? What do we need to cut out? What do we need to make bigger? And what do we need to compress? And so I want to give you a very concrete example, because this time issue comes up relentlessly of saying, well, we don't have time for things. And so here's a very easy way to think about this time-money trade-off, certainly from a physician practice standpoint. And these numbers are from the CMS, Centers for Medicaid reimbursement. I think it was from 2017. But essentially for a 99213 encounter, roughly it's approximately $80 reimbursement, approximately 20 minutes, although you and I very well know that it's not always a 20-minute time. Sometimes that's 20, 25, 30. And again, you also are doing the documentation and any follow-up stuff for that as well. So we're going to just use this for the sake of example, but let's say 20 minutes. And let's say you have 2 of these a day. So one in the morning, one in the afternoon. That's about $160. That's about 40 minutes of time, being conservative with our estimate. So if we just said for the next week, we're going to take off our first visit of the day and our last visit of the day, so we can maybe sleep in, maybe get out a little early to exercise or go for a walk or whatever, see our family, you're looking at about $640 of quote unquote lost revenue, which again doesn't go all in your pocket because it goes for the practice or the hospital system, whatever. So you get some portion of that. And then it affords you about 160 minutes across the week. So the question for you is, if I took this out and said, hey, why don't we give you an extra 40 minutes each day to do one of these lifestyle medicine things to make your life better, now I would say, I'm not going to give you $640 this week, but if I came to you right now and said, here's a check for $640, would your life change in any noticeable way? And I think we're all very lucky to be in the positions that we are, but I'm guessing for a lot of us, it may not make a huge impact. For some of us, it might, and maybe that's important to think about. But in general, if you had $640 less, it may not make as big of an impact as we think. But if I said, what could you do with another almost 3 hours a week? I'm sure you could find really fun things to do in that time that would be meaningful, impactful, might help with some of the burnout and some of the stress you have at work, because not only are you removing some of it, but then you're also having an opportunity to use it for something else, right? It's just like an opportunity cost in economics. And so what would you do if you had that time? Well, so here's a couple of interesting points to think about. And this is from a British study that I really liked. About 2,000 adults they surveyed, and they said, what things are important to you, right? So if they say, what are the things that matter most? These are the top 5 that came up, right? So we have relationships with family or relatives, personal health, health of another close person. Now finances and standard of living are on there as well, and then relationships with other people. So the overwhelming majority of what we say is important to us very much has to do with lifestyle medicine, right? It has the social aspect, the healthy relationships, our own personal health, the health of those around us, and the relationships we have with other people, right? And so again, finances is still on there and standard of living, but I would also beg the question of, I think as family physicians, I think we are very, very prone to overworking, to overcaring. And I think for many of us, we end up suffering some setbacks and some of the other things that really are important to us too, in addition to patient care. And so I think we need to be honest with ourselves of like, what really matters to us? And are we making our lives reflect the things that we say are matters? Now, another study that I thought was really fun, and this was actually a book, it was called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And this is a woman who basically became a caretaker for a couple of years and just went and spent working with hospice, basically with people who are going to die. And she had hours and hours to talk with these people. And they said, well, what are the things that you regret in your life? And again, I'm not going to read the whole list here, but just to highlight a few. So The first one on that list is I lived more for myself. 2, didn't work so hard. 7, didn't worry so much. 8, took better care of myself. 10, lived in the now. And certainly for me, like this list rings very true of saying, am I doing enough for me, my own health? Am I working too hard? Am I not taking care of myself? And am I worrying too much about things that probably in the end don't matter as much as I think they do? So again, just things for us to think about and keep in mind that we only have a finite time on this earth. And so if these are the things that are important to us, and these are the things that people said, I wish I would have done better, I think this is our chance to say, well, maybe we can do this better, and we can do this better right now. So one of the things I'm going to offer you guys today is what I call the busy challenge, right? So I've just told you about this time, this priorities. Everybody's busy. How do we find time to fit some other lifestyle medicine thing in that wheel of all of the things that we do every day? And I really like this challenge because we're all busy, but I think this notion of being busy is something that gives us an opportunity to improve on. So the next time that you're going to respond to someone saying, I'd love to help out with X or Y, or, I'd love to play dolls with you, honey, but mommy's just too busy right now, right? We use this busy excuse, if you will, quite frequently. And I want to change our mindset about that, because in reality, none of us are too busy for anything. In reality, what we're saying is that whatever this activity is not a high enough priority to me right now. And you can use this example in any way that you can think of. But essentially, the busy response that we say is, I'm doing something else. It's more important than whatever this new opportunity is. And that's okay. It's fine. There are lots of things that I am too busy for, that you are too busy for. I'm too busy right now to clean the dust off my blinds. I totally appreciate that, because it is not a high enough priority for me right now. But it's not that I'm too busy. It's just it's not a high enough priority. And one of the ways you can think about this is, people say, well, I don't have enough time for that because I am too busy. Well, in reality, you have more time right now than you will ever have left on this earth at this moment. So it's not that we don't have enough time, it's just that it's not a high enough priority for me. And this is totally a fine thing to say, but we do need to understand what our priorities actually are. Because if we just say, I'm too busy for it, maybe we're just missing things that are important to us. And when you say, hey, I'm too busy to clean the blinds, nobody really cares. They just shrug it off and say, yeah, he is too busy for that. Or someone says, hey, I'm too busy to go out and get drinks on Friday, or, go to a movie. Most people say, okay, like, it's fine. He's a busy doctor. Like, I'm sure he's got lots of important things to do. But I think when we replace the busy word with it's not a high enough priority for me right now, 1, it removes the automaticity of the response. And 2, it allows us to actually think about, is this an important thing to me or not? And I think an easy way to think about the sort of how important this is, if you have a daughter or a child, for example, and they come up to you and say, hey, can we play dolls tonight instead of, and you're in the process of making dinner, it's easy to say, hey, I'm too busy for that because, I'm cooking dinner, I'm cleaning the house, or hey, I gotta, do these patient emails or notes. But when you say, hey, it's not a high enough priority for me to play dolls with you right now, that doesn't feel as nice, right? Because it feels like, well, my daughter's really important to me. It's perhaps one of the most important people in my life. Is it really not a high enough priority? Or am I just saying this because it's an easy default answer that most people sort of will take at face value and then let me do my thing? So I do think this is an important thought, because as much as we'd love to say, well, hey, I'll look towards the future, and when I have time, I'll start working out, or when I have a bit less busy clinic schedule, I'll get enough sleep, or you can fill in the X and Y with whatever you want. But you really need to find out what's important to you, and you need to prioritize those things, because time will take care of itself, but you need to make sure that you are putting your time and energy and effort and investing it in the things that matter to you. Now, I think this comes up frequently, and this used to be one of my favorite sort of things to try and optimize, was this idea of efficiency. And certainly in residency, I would try to do everything as efficient as possible, right? I'd try to be on the phone while I'm doing laundry and cooking food for the week. And, I'm trying to do 10 things at once. And I think for things that are necessary tasks to do, for example, like you need to do the laundry, you need to cook food, you need to, put gas in your car, you need to go, there are things that you have to do, and making sure that we do those things efficiently that are necessary tasks, I think is critically important. But at the same time, you can start to become so efficient that you have lost the purpose of efficiency. Efficiency helps you get things done that need to be finished to allow you to have the time that you want to do the things that you actually care about most. Now, you don't really want to be efficient in spending time with your child. Like, that's not really the best way to do it. Like, you're there to be present and enjoy the experience, not to get in and get out and be done with it. And so I think this is where efficiency can become problematic, when we try and be efficient with the things that are important to us. So efficiency is important, but we also need to be mindful that the more efficient you are, it just means the more that you can do. And if we're not being purposeful about what things that we think we need to do, and we're not doing a good job of prioritizing, we become overwhelmed, which can easily lead to being stressed, burnt out, etc. And so the last sort of section here is when I want to offer some tips and tricks about how to put these things into practice. And so I'm going to start briefly with the perspective. I'm going to go into scheduling, and then lastly, we'll finish up with the saying no thing. This was an interesting thing that came from a TED Talk a little while ago that I saw, that I was like, wow, that was really cool. But it is the idea that we're very driven in our society to do things that we get to put on our resume, right? To write another paper, to join another committee, to do another board exam or fellowship or whatever you want to do, just to make our resume look better. But a lot of the things that we think ultimately matter are the things that people would say about us in our eulogy, right? Like, I've never heard a eulogy that it just says, this person was so academically successful, they spent all their time writing papers, and they just made such a huge contribution. Those things are great, but the things that really matter in the end are the kind of people that we are. And again, this comes back to the same idea of prioritizing things that are important, doing things to take care of ourselves so we can take care of other people. So I think it's an interesting mindset to think, am I doing things for my resume, or am I doing things, because it's something that matters to me and will matter in the end? And I think if nothing else, this is again pulled from the book, but this idea of, what gets scheduled generally gets done. And so I said, well, okay, we have these lifestyle medicine things. We know pretty well what the majority of them are to really promote optimal health and wellness. Why don't we just put them in our daily calendar, right? Just like you have a conference call, or you have this webinar at 12:15. Why can't we have a 12:15 walk over lunch? Why can't we have a scheduled dinner? Why can't we schedule working out, et cetera, et cetera? So this is just a one-day example of it. But again, there's no more than 5 things on any individual day. One of them is sleeping, which is a fairly given thing that most of us are going to do. But it is getting sufficient sleep, right? So getting that 7 to 9 hours. And then actually then expanded this across from just a day to say, well, what does a week look like? Let's put all the lifestyle medicine things we need to do in a week, and how can we do it in a way that we can actually accomplish it and feel good about it? And so again, this is just a resource that's available to people, but again, making sure that you're getting your fruits and vegetables every day, making sure that you have some sort of spiritual practice. And I put in all the recommendations from sleep, again, using fruits and veggies as a surrogate for diet. I put in all the physical activity recommendations in here. But you could literally schedule all of these things into your life if you needed to, right, to make sure that they happen. And so again, just a tool that you can use. But when we start thinking about what our priorities are, we need to find a way to implement them in our lives. And for scheduling, it works remarkably well, right? Because people rarely miss like a personal training appointment, because there's accountability there. So if you schedule this in, you've all of a sudden created accountability for yourself. And this is one of the other best skills that you can learn as a physician. And I'm very much still struggling to do it, but can easily have the biggest impact on your life. So we get asked to do things all the time. Can you follow up with this? Can you do this? Can you check this email? Can you see this patient? Can you come to this event? Can you serve on this committee? And very much we like to please people, right? Because we're trying to do what's best for them. We want people to think highly of us, and we want to do things to help people out. But I think the art of saying no is arguably one of the best skills we can have, because very quickly we become overburdened and too busy with too many things that in the end aren't really that important to us. It's just we didn't take the time to sort of say no up front, and now we're stuck sort of doing it begrudgingly. But so a few things that you can use in your daily vocabulary. One, I love to let me check my calendar. Whenever somebody comes up to you face to face and says, hey, can you do X with me on Saturday? Let me check my calendar is a perfect excuse, or a perfect response, I should say. It gives you the time, the energy to look at your calendar, say, hey, is this event actually important to me? If it is, you should 100% do it. But if you say, well, I don't really care that much about, going bowling with this particular group of people. I'd much rather spend it with my family Saturday morning having breakfast. It gives you the chance to sort of think about it mindfully and make the decision that's right for you. I think another great way to respond to this no thing is, I don't think I'll be able to do X, fill in the blank, but I'm willing to do Y, right? Saying, I don't think I'm going to have time to serve on this committee, but I'd be happy to review a few of the documents you have to see if I can help you out, right? So again, giving them something, but also protecting yourself against doing the things that matter to you. I think proposing a replacement is another great one. I mean, at the end of the day, most of the people just want help with whatever task it is. And although we'd all like to think that we are the only people who can do this, quite frequently there's someone who can do it equally well, maybe sometimes even better than we can, right? And so if they ask you for something, say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, would you serve on this committee? Be like, well, I've got a lot of things going on right now, but I think Dr. X might be a good person to serve in lieu of me. Again, so give them somebody that they can go towards and think about without sort of just dropping the ball entirely. And then lastly, I think this is for more of a corporation sort of standpoint, or when you have supervisors or bosses saying, hey, we need you to do something new at your job, or we need you to do this faster or better or whatever. You can say, sure, I'm happy to do this, but what things can I deprioritize? What things can I have somebody else do or help me with, right? So just giving people the opportunity to tell you what they need done, and then let the other tasks be delegated to someone else. And I think this is one of the last really important ideas I want to send home with you all, but there is no free yes, right? So every time you say yes to anything, you're saying no to something else. If you're saying yes to having lunch with somebody, you're saying no to having lunch with your family or doing whatever activity you were going to do in place of that. If you say yes to being on a committee, even if it's 3 months from now on a Tuesday night, you're saying yes to that committee, but you're saying no to having dinner with your family that night too. So there's no free yes. So anytime you say yes or no, just be mindful of that. And the last two things I'll leave you with, things you can do right now. So one, I think finding ways to be empathetic every day will only improve your life. Recognizing that everybody's in this life trying to do their best, but when somebody cuts you off on the highway, they're not doing it because they are angry at you or trying to piss you off. They're just doing it for their own betterment or their own good. But finding ways to say, hey, you know what? The world doesn't revolve around me. Nobody's out really trying to hurt or get me. Just lets you sort of understand and appreciate what other things may go on in your life a little bit more and make it a little bit less stressful and easy to deal with. And then lastly, unplug and connect. I think we spend way too much time on our smartphones, on social media, on Instagram, on Snapchat, all those things. And I've really tried to wean myself down, particularly before like bedtime at the end of the day, because you can spend hours just doing it. And it actually really interrupts your sleep, in addition to making you lose sight of the connections right in front of you. So again, just a simple lifestyle medicine thing you can do right now. Just put the phone down or the computer down, whatever it is that you do at night electronically, and just give yourself an opportunity to reconnect with the family and the people that you care about. So with that, I thank you all for your attention, and hopefully we have still a few minutes for some questions. These are some really excellent resources. I highlighted the ones that I like the best, but certainly there's some really cool resources here that Caitlin will put on the website. And with that, we'll take any questions. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can make a few comments. So if anyone is interested in the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine or the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, their sites are here. Very interesting to just go peruse, see if there's anything that interests you. The conference this year is in Orlando. I will be there if you want to come and say hi. Probably my favorite talk that I think everyone can benefit from is David Foster Wallace's This is Water talk. Really, really good. Definitely worth the 17 or so minutes. I probably listened to it, I don't know, 20, 30 times. Really good. I put the Art of Saying No book on there as a reference. One of my favorite podcasts is by Peter Attia. If anyone wants to get a real appreciation for the importance of sleep, this is a 3-part series, and it's pretty long, but it is easily the highest yield sleep medicine I've ever heard anywhere. Far better than what you got in medical school, I promise you. And I can definitely tell you that you will be more excited about sleeping after you listen to some of those. So that's a good one. If people want, I know email is just overrun with monotony and too much noise, but the Daily Stoic email is probably about a 30 to 45 second read every day. Just helps ground and center you. I've really, really enjoyed reading them. Probably my favorite email I get on a daily basis. And then for people who are interested in meditating, I've just sort of gotten into this domain, but there's a really cool waking up course that sort of gives you a 10-minute meditation every day. It's guided, very simple, very easy to do. It's definitely made a big impact in terms of my stress and mindfulness. So just a few resources for anybody who's interested. It's been a pleasure to be here. Hopefully I provided a few nuggets of information for you all, but hope you have a good rest of your clinic sessions today, and hopefully we'll be in touch later. Feel free to call or email me with any questions. She has my contact information in the slides will be made available too.